Before sunrise in Indianapolis, before alarms began ringing across quiet neighborhoods, the Blackburn home at Sunnyfield Court still carried the warmth of an ordinary morning. Amanda moved through those rooms with her usual gentleness, a softness that seemed woven into every part of her life. She was weeks into her second pregnancy, already imagining the daughter she'd named Evie Grace. Weston, her toddler, slept upstairs without a sound, and downstairs, the house she had tried so carefully to build into a place of comfort waited for the day to begin. Hours before she was due to wake, 3 men had already stepped into the dark with intentions shaped by violence. Their paths were never supposed to cross Amanda's. That collision, random, senseless, vicious, would tear open the fabric of an entire community. Amanda Blackburn had a gift for seeing beauty where others saw nothing. She collected worn furniture from garage sales and curbsides, sanding and painting until old wood looked new again. Weathered Willow wasn't just a small business, it was the philosophy she lived by. That belief that nothing was too broken to be made whole again ran through her life, her marriage, her family, her friendships. People felt safe around her. People trusted her. And in every room she entered, she made space for others to step forward. Her life began far from Indianapolis. Born on July 31, 1987, Amanda grew up surrounded by siblings her family adopted over the years. Her parents, Phil and Robin Byers, moved the family to Elkhart, Indiana when she was 8. Phil pastored First Baptist Church in Elkhart, and faith was the foundation of their home. Amanda was the kind of daughter people described as warm without trying, thoughtful without needing recognition. She graduated from Elkhart Christian Academy in 2006, then attended Pensacola Christian College and earned an associate's degree in 2008. She became a kindergarten teacher, a role she loved so deeply that even in videos she recorded for her students, the tenderness in her voice was unmistakable. No one who knew her doubted that she was built for nurturing, for creating small pockets of brightness wherever she went. During those years, she met Davy Blackburn on a blind date at a Hawk Nelson concert. It was the kind of meeting people turn into stories, awkward, funny, unexpected. In the middle of a milkshake drinking contest, Amanda burst out laughing so hard that the milkshake flew out of her nose. Davy later said that was the moment he knew. They married on August 1, 2008, anchoring their lives to shared faith, shared goals, and the shared belief that building something meaningful was worth the work. In 2012, they moved to Indianapolis with a vision to start a church that felt alive, a place rooted in connection rather than tradition. Resonate Church began with about 150 people and grew through outreach, events, and the couple's energy. Amanda poured herself into the For Indy movement, trying to create impact for families, neighborhoods, and individuals in need. She encouraged people one-on-one, listened without judgment, and loved the overlooked. By late 2015, the Blackburns family had grown. Weston was 15 months old. A second baby, a daughter, was on the way. Friends said Amanda glowed when she talked about her children. The world she imagined for them, gentle, hopeful, steady, was something she worked toward every day. November 9, 2015 seemed ordinary in every way. Amanda spent the day with her sister, Amber, at Traders Point Christian Church. They watched their children play and talked about the small things, the future, the baby on the way. Amber would later say it was a beautiful day, full of laughter. She had no way of knowing it would be the last time she'd ever see her sister alive. The night fell quietly across Indianapolis. Then came the hours of November 10th. While most of the city slept, 3 men were awake inside the Westlake apartments. 18-year-old Larry Taylor, 21-year-old Jalen Watson, and 24-year-old Diana Gordon. They called themselves the Kill Gang. All 3 were on parole. All 3 had histories of violence. All 3 had spent the past week committing bursts of crime, break-ins, assaults, robberies, moving from one apartment complex to another, generating chaos wherever they went. 1 week earlier, Taylor and Watson had broken into a nearby apartment where a young woman was showering. Taylor held a gun to the back of her neck. He assaulted her while Watson searched the home. They stole her belongings and her vehicle. The next day, Taylor shot and killed Rolando Gonzalez Hernandez over a robbery attempt that netted almost nothing. Witnesses later testified that Taylor bragged about it. These weren't men searching for opportunity. They were searching for victims. At 4:30 a.m. on November 10th, they started their morning with a break-in at the cottages of Fall Creek, stealing electronics, car keys, a purse, and a Chrysler Sebring. A security camera caught their faces before they disabled it. Taylor wanted to kill the homeowner for seeing them. Watson and Gordon pulled him away. Minutes later, at 5:36 a.m., they hit another home, 2830 Sunnyfield Court, just across from Amanda and Davy Blackburn's residence. They drank beer and wine, stole multiple televisions, jewelry, oranges, bedsheets, and a pink sweater. Their stolen car now carried a load of evidence, items that would later become the key to breaking the case open. But the three men weren't done. Across the street sat the Blackburn home. At 6 a.m., Davy left for the gym. He woke early, read his Bible, then drove to LA Fitness. Because the couple shared one house key, Amanda kept the key ring. Davy left the front door unlocked so she could leave later with Weston. It was a small habit, a small decision, a small detail. 6 minutes later, surveillance footage captured Davy driving away. Taylor saw him leave. To Taylor, an unlocked door meant opportunity. A home meant money. A woman meant vulnerability. And a moment of isolation meant the house was his. Within minutes, all three men walked through the unlocked front door. Amanda was inside. What happened in those following minutes was never supposed to be part of her morning, her life, or her story. Taylor struck her hard across the face with his .38 caliber revolver, knocking out one of her teeth. Amanda was pregnant, alone, waking to a nightmare no one could have imagined. Taylor forced her to hand over her ATM cards. Watson and Gordon left to withdraw cash while Taylor stayed behind. At 6:25 a.m., cell tower data placed all three suspects on Sunnyfield Court. At 6:36 a.m., cameras captured Watson and Gordon at a Chase Bank ATM, attempting to withdraw $500. The transaction was denied. An ATM receipt timestamped at that moment would later become a crucial piece of evidence. Inside the Blackburn home, minutes stretched like hours. Amanda remained face down near the fireplace. Taylor paced around her. He called Watson and Gordon, yelling that they were taking too long. He gave them the correct PIN. Watson later testified about what happened next. Taylor tried to force Amanda into sexual compliance. When she resisted, when she lunged at him, fought him, refused to surrender, he shot her once to stop her from scratching him. She collapsed. Taylor shot her again in the back of the head. Then he leaned over and watched her bleed. The house that once held soft mornings and gentle laughter now stood silent. By 6:45 a.m., a neighbor heard gunshots. At 6:54 a.m., Watson and Gordon made a second ATM withdrawal, successfully withdrawing $400. They wrapped the stolen pink sweater around their faces to avoid being recognized on camera. At 7:10 a.m., surveillance cameras captured a hooded figure leaving the neighborhood. By the time they picked Taylor up, he slid into the car and told them, "I smoked her." At that same moment, Davy Blackburn finished his workout. He drove home, parked in the driveway, and stayed in the car on the phone, not wanting to wake Amanda or disrupt the quiet of the house. He remained outside for nearly an hour, unaware of the horror inside. By 8:20 a.m., a neighbor called police about the earlier burglary across the street. 3 minutes later, Davy walked inside. The scene he found would replay in his mind for years. Amanda lay face down, partially undressed, surrounded by blood. Her credit cards and wallet lay scattered nearby. A decorative ladder was knocked over. A cigar wrapper, something that didn't belong in their home, sat on the counter. Their son Weston was still asleep upstairs, unharmed. At 8:22 a.m., Davy called 911. Paramedics rushed Amanda to Indiana University Health Methodist Hospital. She was placed on life support. Her condition was critical. The gunshot wounds were severe. On November 11, 2015, Amanda Blackburn died. Her unborn daughter, Evie Grace, died as well. The Marion County coroner later confirmed Amanda had been shot 3 times, once through the left arm, once through her back, and once in the head, a wound that proved fatal. Her injuries, the missing tooth, the split lip, the torn clothing all reflected the violence of her final moments. Police quickly eliminated Davy as a suspect. His entire morning, from gym check-in to phone calls to surveillance footage, aligned perfectly. There was no evidence, no motive, no possibility of his involvement. The timeline proved it. Meanwhile, the men responsible kept moving, unaware that their downfall had already begun. In the stolen car abandoned on Rockwood Avenue, detectives found the pink sweater, the bed sheets, the bag of oranges, ATM receipts, and other stolen items. The sweater wrapped around a suspect's face during the ATM withdrawal held DNA. CODIS returned a match, Jaylen Watson. Cell tower records placed his phone on Sunnyfield Court. Gordon's phone also pinged near the scene. Calls traced to Larry Taylor linked him to the group. Witnesses from the earlier crimes identified them through photo arrays. Within 13 days of Amanda's murder, all 3 men were in custody. Watson and Gordon confessed, implicating Taylor as the shooter. Taylor denied involvement but kept changing his story. The community that had been shaken now watched justice move quickly. Amanda's father called her the love of my life, describing her as a woman who lived fully and freely for others. Her family mourned, her church grieved, and her city faced the weight of a tragedy that felt both random and devastatingly unfair. Yet even as the truth came into focus, another story, one rooted in speculation, began to grow online. The truth would eventually cut through all of it. The investigation moved with a speed that reflected the urgency of a city shaken awake. Amanda's murder wasn't just another statistic. It was the kind of crime that pierced through neighborhoods, churches, newsrooms, and living rooms with the same question: how could something so brutal happen to someone like her? The police felt the weight of those expectations. The Blackburn home had been a sanctuary hours earlier. Now it was a crime scene demanding answers. Detectives canvassed Sunnyfield Court and surrounding neighborhoods, gathering surveillance footage and interviewing residents. What they didn't realize yet was that traces of the truth were scattered everywhere. In abandoned cars, on clothing, in ATM receipts, in phone records, on a pink sweater stuffed inside a stolen vehicle miles away. The pink sweater turned out to be the first loud crack in the case. DNA analysis matched it to Jaylen Watson. From there, the web of evidence grew rapidly. Watson's phone pinged near the Blackburn home at the exact time of the break-in. Security footage from 2 Chase Bank ATMs showed Watson and Gordon attempting withdrawals using Amanda's debit cards. The receipts found in the stolen Chrysler Sebring aligned perfectly with the timestamps of the crime. Detectives followed the trail backward, from ATM footage to phone location history, from cell towers to call logs, from witness interviews to forensic confirmations. Each piece of evidence pointed toward the same trio moving across Indianapolis that morning with a combination of carelessness and cruelty. Watson and Gordon were arrested first, both on parole violations. As detectives questioned them, the details spilled out. Their confessions mirrored one another. Taylor stayed inside the home with Amanda while they left to get cash. Taylor was the one who struck her. Taylor was the one who attempted to violate her. Taylor was the one who pulled the trigger. Taylor was the one who stepped outside minutes later, saying, "I smoked her." Larry Taylor, however, denied everything. His explanations shifted with every conversation. First, he claimed he couldn't remember. Then he said he wasn't anywhere near the home. Then he admitted to being in the area, but insisted he was looking for someone called Cheese. He told detectives he was high, confused, and had no memory of violence. But the evidence said otherwise. The cell data, the ATM footage, the stolen items, the DNA, the confessions from his accomplices, the timeline aligning down to the minute. There was no bending around it. On November 22nd and 23, DNA matches from the sweater were officially confirmed. That same night, Indianapolis police, gang units, and U.S. Marshals traced Taylor to a relative's home. He was taken into custody without incident. Prosecutors moved quickly. Charges were filed: murder, felony murder, burglary, robbery, and firearm offenses. Watson and Gordon faced lesser charges in exchange for their testimony. The motive, investigators concluded, was chillingly simple: opportunity. The men didn't know Amanda. They didn't know her family. They hadn't targeted her. They were roaming Indianapolis, looking for homes to burglarize. The Blackburn residence was chosen because the door was unlocked, and the homeowner had just left. That was all it took. Amanda's father mourned his daughter publicly and with deep vulnerability. Every memory he shared painted a portrait of a woman who lived with intention, someone selfless, warm, and full of faith. Her life was marked not by grand gestures, but by small acts of kindness that had soft, lasting effects on everyone around her. She was buried alongside her unborn daughter, Evie Grace. 2 lives intertwined, both lost before they ever had the chance to experience the world together. Davy, still in shock, released a statement that many struggled to comprehend in the midst of so much pain. He chose forgiveness over hatred. He chose grace over anger. He said it was what Amanda would have done, what she did every day. His words reflected a commitment to the values he and Amanda had built their life around. But the public response shifted unpredictably. What began as sympathy slowly morphed into suspicion in certain corners of the internet. With no evidence and no connection to the crime, strangers dissected Davy's grief. They questioned why he left the door unlocked, why he stayed in the driveway on the phone, why his statements sounded controlled, why he spoke about hope instead of rage, why he registered the domain linked-to-nothing-is-wasted.net just 2 days after losing his wife. People took fragments of his behavior, stripped them of context, and reshaped them into theories. None of it aligned with the facts. None of it matched the timeline. None of it held weight against the evidence. LA Fitness surveillance video stamped his exact arrival and departure times. Phone records traced every call he made. Data placed his phone away from the home throughout the attack. Security cameras showed him leaving and returning. Not a single piece of forensic or testimonial evidence placed him anywhere near the violence. Not one suspect implicated him. Not one witness suggested involvement. Not one element of the timeline allowed for it. He was cleared within days. The case against the true perpetrators stood solidly on its own. Trials began unfolding over the next several years. Watson and Gordon took plea deals, each receiving significant sentences but reduced in exchange for testifying against Taylor. Taylor's case, however, dragged through 2 mistrials before finally moving forward in a bench trial. Witness testimony painted the same picture repeatedly. Taylor stayed behind while the others went to the ATMs. Taylor complained they were taking too long. Taylor admitted to shooting Amanda. Taylor bragged about it. Taylor described forcing himself on her before pulling the trigger twice. Davy testified, recounting the morning he left the home, the unlocked door, the workout, the strange voicemail Amanda received about possible unauthorized ATM use, and the moment he found her lying near the fireplace. The judge reviewed the confessions, the data, the forensic evidence, the timeline, and the brutality of the attack. Taylor was found guilty, not by conjecture, but by facts. He received 86 years in prison for Amanda's murder. After pleading guilty to the earlier sexual assault from November 3rd, his total sentence rose to 106 years. His appeals were denied. Amanda's family chose forgiveness, something most people admitted they could not do themselves. Their grief didn't disappear, but they refused to surrender their lives to bitterness. Watson received 10 years plus 5 on home detention. He has since been released. Gordon received 30 years, with 25 to be served in prison. Taylor remains incarcerated at Miami Correctional Facility. Life moved forward in ways that felt impossible at first. 2 days after Amanda died, Davy registered the domain linked-to-nothing-is-wasted.net. It would eventually evolve into a platform focused on helping people navigate pain, trauma, and loss. In early 2016, he registered an LLC tied to the same mission. He sold the family's home on Sunnyfield Court a few months later and purchased a larger home under the business name NIW Serendipity LLC. In September 2016, nearly a year after Amanda's death, he met a woman named Christy at the gym. She was a single mother with a daughter. Their connection formed slowly, cautiously. Davy was open about the grief he carried, the scars that refused to fade, and the complexity of building a life after unimaginable loss. Christy's stepfather happened to be a prison chaplain who had interacted with Amanda's killers, an unexpected link that Davy later described as a deeply personal form of closure. They eventually married in December 2017 with the blessing of Amanda's family. Their blended family grew with time: Natalia, Weston, and a son they named Cohen. Davy resigned from Resonate Church in early 2018, announcing he was shifting focus toward his new ministry centered on healing. The church closed a week later due to financial strain, something the leadership acknowledged as mismanagement rather than misappropriation. The congregation dwindled to about 75 people during the final meeting. Life continued to move in unpredictable directions. Davy began speaking publicly about grief, trauma, forgiveness, and faith. His ministry expanded through podcasts, classes, and retreats. In July 2024, he published a book titled Nothing is Wasted, detailing the journey he'd been forced into. Publication had been delayed for years to avoid interfering with the criminal trials. But no matter how much time passed, no matter how many layers of healing unfolded, one truth remained. Amanda's story didn't fade. People remembered the teacher who saw beauty in broken things, the young mother who found joy in old furniture and repurposed pieces, the wife who believed relationships needed attention, intention, and tenderness, the daughter who radiated warmth wherever she went, the woman who believed that nothing, not pain, not difficulty, not hardship, was ever truly wasted. Her philosophy carried through her life. It carried through the people who loved her. It carried through the city that mourned her. And even as others healed, that truth remained untouched. On November 10, 2015, 3 men destroyed a world that Amanda had spent her entire life building. Yet what she left behind, kindness, hope, compassion, survived them. Amanda Grace Blackburn. A life interrupted. A light remembered. Take a moment to hit the subscribe button